There's a gear company that I've never tested or reviewed, but makes some pretty cool gear. I'm headed out on a trip to do something that may be really awkward, but could also be a lot of fun. I'm gonna be testing a bunch of gear from Outdoor Vitals and doing it right in front of the faces of the people who designed the gear. You and them are gonna get my raw and unfiltered opinion about the gear that they put their blood, sweat, and tears into. The first piece of gear that I want to introduce you guys to is the CS40 pack. This is the piece of gear that I was most excited for. It's a very sleek looking pack, and I've listened to a couple of the Outdoor Vitals podcasts in order to get some information on the pack. And so far it's been really quite a good pack. My favorite feature that I found out so far are the water bottle pockets. Look at this. I can reach back, take some water, and then put it back into the water bottle pocket. It's crazy how many packs these days don't have side pockets that you can reach water in. I'm gonna be taking you guys along as I use this pack as well as all the other gear. I'm also gonna be looking at a tent, a windbreaker, a full sleep system, so sleeping pad, and a quilt. The sleeping pad is probably one of the only sleeping pads that I've seen from a smaller manufacturer like Outdoor Vitals that might actually perform well in the field. But if I have any questions, if there's something that I think is wrong with the pack or the tent or any of the products that I'm looking at, I'm gonna go tell Tayson and Brigham right away, get their feedback, and then share that with you guys. Also, just a heads up, this video isn't sponsored by Outdoor Vitals. I was just really excited to get out on a trip with them, with the gear, and be able to have this back and forth experience. We got a thunderstorm that we can see in the distance over there that's rolling in on us. There's thunder happening and definitely some rain attached to that. Good thing I have a rain jacket from Outdoor Vitals to test out as well. Kind of hoping there's a little bit of rain, to be honest. We're starting to hit the snow. That's why we have snowshoes on our pack. Tomorrow we might be getting up into some elevation where there's some deeper snow, and we don't want to be post holing as well. We brought spikes. It's gonna be an interesting trip. These guys are taking me on a good adventure in the mountains of Utah. Got Brigham up there navigating, leading the way. This is the first trip in a very long time where I have no idea where I'm going or how far I'm going. I don't know anything about the navigation, which is kind of freeing, but also a little bit in the back of my mind, I'm like, where are we going? Apparently it's a beautiful lake up there. Excited to get there because I'm starting to get hungry, and I want to set up my tent, check out the sleep system that I brought with me, and then tomorrow I'm going to share some thoughts that I have about this pack. Made it to the lake. Looks like a lake just back at home. Always nice though.
You came all this way.
For a frozen lake. Another frozen lake. So we got to the spot where we're gonna set up camp. There's slim pickings with all the snow out everywhere, but we got on this top little ridge here, which is a little bit warmer than down low. I'm gonna set up right here in this nice area. Those guys are being nice and letting me have that, and they're gonna kind of tuck into the trees over there, get dinner going, and yeah, excited to see this tent and sleep system in person. There she is, all pitched. So this is the two-person version of the tent. It's called the 40th, if I hadn't mentioned it already. It is a trekking pole tent, which I love. You get an all-in-one pitch, which is really nice. If it's raining, the flag goes up right up with the inner. And they say on their website that it fits two 25-inch pads, but we'll have to see. I have a 25-inch pad here, and I'll have to borrow one of the other guys. We can do a little test. The sleeping pad is looking pretty space age, so I'm excited to check it out, sleep on it tonight, and then I'll share with you guys tomorrow everything that I've discovered and kind of think about the sleeping pad and the quilt here. Good morning. I slept better than I expected last night. The ground is frozen and really wet, and the sleeping pad that I was on is only rated to 3.5 R value. So I thought I was going to be cold coming from the ground, and then because the temperatures dropped below freezing, I thought I was going to be cold from my insulation on top as well, because my top quilt was only a 30-degree rated top quilt. But I slept actually really warm, so I'm not sure what's happening with that sleeping pad, because it slept way warmer than I expected for a 3.5 R value, and then the quilt performed really well. So I guess Outdoor Vitals is rated their quilts based on a comfort rating as opposed to a limit rating, because normally I can sleep slightly below comfort ratings and still be warm. But with the tent was pretty good. I did experience quite a bit of condensation inside the tent, which is expected. I'm camping on really wet ground, frozen ground, so there's going to be condensation, but it wasn't really running down the walls as much as I expected. And then there were some drips that were coming straight from the top that were landing on top of my quilt and on top of my sleep system. I think there's probably some things I can do in order to minimize condensation inside that tent. So I'm going to talk to Tayson and Brigham, see if they can give me some tips, because I imagine tonight we're going to be seeing a lot of condensation as well. How'd you sleep, Tayson?
I slept really good, like to the point where I fell asleep accidentally and woke up at 4 a.m. Yeah. How about yourself?
Good, yeah. What I was surprised about was the sleeping pad. R value 3.5. I was warm on ground that I didn't think I was going to be warm on. So what's up with that?
It was a good test, right? It was like cold, wet, frozen ground, swampy in the day. I've wondered the same thing though, because I've seen other pads out there that I know use either similar technologies or in ours, but don't have the silver coated top, and they're like 4 or 4.2 or something, and I'm like, how are we using the same technology? Like, I don't know exactly the thickness of their insulation, but we went with like one of the higher options, and we use a silver coated top. Like, how are they that much more? Like, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, maybe it's the reflective top. I was thinking maybe that's it. That's creating kind of this warmer microclimate above the pad for me. But I've tested R value pads with R values in the fours, high fours on this kind of ground and this kind of temperature, and been cold on them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was surprised. I was right. I was like mentally prepared for a cold night. So what do we got going on today, Brigham?
Got a little bit of cross-country travel, and much of it will be in snow.
I guess that's why you got the snowshoes going there?
Yeah, I got the snowshoes. I'm going to give that a shot, because we kind of have to climb up out of this basin. It's a pretty steep climb. Normally, the trail is just switchbacks, but we'll just be switching back on snow.
We hit a bridge, not gonna have to hop the creek this time. We're gonna fill up on some water here too. It's getting pretty slippery. It's 10 a.m. and the snow's softening up, which means as we step, sometimes it's just giving out underneath us. Little slips every once in a while. Luckily, we just have to get up to the top of this ridge here, and then it should be a little bit more flat for most of the day. I'll get the heart rate going.
Yeah.
Stopping at this lake, day use area, a little picnic table, have some lunch. We had a good lunch. I got to use the windbreaker that Outdoor Vitals has made, which is a nice balance of breathability but also wind blocking capabilities. very good pieces to like have in your pack that weighs around 100 grams. Throw it on during lunchtime or breaks, block some of that wind, keep some of the warmth. Yeah, looking forward to continue to try that. I did promise to talk to you guys about the rain jacket, so we'll do that once we get to camp. Right now we are kind of going along the snow field. We're on a north facing slope here, so it might be a ton of snow. We might have to throw in the snowshoes. There's not really any trail to speak of. It's gonna be interesting. Brigham mentioned that this part of the day is probably going to be the hardest part of the day, even harder than the random mogul fields and that slippery uphill that we had earlier in the day. That was a big hole.
What is that? There's something. That's one of those ramps. Your bike ramp.
Is it really?
Yeah. Sheesh. But I got some pretty long legs, and I went.
You and crotch deep, yeah. So I've been using the pack for about a day and a half now, and have some thoughts for you guys, some questions. How much weight have you guys maxed it out? For you, what's comfort from a max standpoint?
We haven't gone to like a failure point, which may be an interesting video someday, but from comfort standpoint,
A good example for us would be like a winter trip. It's pretty hard to do a trip for like under 35 pounds.
Yeah.
With that, and I would say it's probably likely we've gotten to 40.
All right, Brigham. So maybe walk us through kind of what we're looking at with the frame here and how it's managing weight and transferring weight and all those good things that are leading to the pack carrying weight well.
So the overall objective is to stabilize and transfer the load and whatever that weighs. So we want the weight to be off of our shoulders, and that's done by having a supporting structure inside the backpack, and then having, these are called load lifter straps. And you see, if we were to loosen this strap, it's gonna push down all the weight on top of Tayson's shoulders, and also at the same time kind of pull him back. And all that does is putting all the pressure on the shoulders and the spine. That creates a ton of fatigue and discomfort and like long-term injury eventually. So we want to have a structure inside, and that's a carbon fiber internal frame stay. There's two of them. By having an internal frame that terminates right here, so higher than the level of the shoulder, and then if you connect in a piece of webbing here with a tension lock, through leverage, you're able to pull on that and lift the shoulder strap a little bit off the shoulder. Basically, that just lifts the majority of the weight off the shoulder, and then the weight has to be transferred somewhere, right? So all that weight is now transferred via the support structure, which is the carbon fiber frame, takes that load down to the hip belt at the bottom of the pack.
Maybe Tayson, we could kind of just get a side profile of the rest of the pack. What's this material that we're seeing here?
So this is Ultra 200. So it's an ultra fabric or an ultra fiber based woven fabric that's laminated on the inside. It's incredibly abrasion resistant, incredibly strong in terms of like tear resistance and tensile strength. It does all of that in a weight class of a 100D fabric, whereas this is a 200 denier fabric. So it's a really cool fabric, and it's something we wanted to do to have increased durability of the fabric with a really lightweight pack.
Heading down off the ridge into the valley here, try and find some water and a campsite, then get camp set up. Share with you guys some details around that quilt and sleeping pad that I used last night, and then the Tusher rain jacket that I've been promising for a while. And then at some point, either today or tomorrow, I'll give you guys the rundown on all the gear that I've used on this trip that I'm probably gonna really kind of incorporate into my day-to-day and move forward, because there's a few pieces that are really stand out when it comes to piece of gear compared to other items on the market. We found water at this little creek right here. Looks real tasty, and then this big open field where as long as it's dry, we can camp anywhere really. So before I throw my sleep system into the tent, let's just take you on a little bit of a tour of what Outdoor Vitals has to offer with regards to the sleep system. This is their Oblivion sleeping pad. I have here the 25-inch wide version. I am kind of partial to 25-inch wide sleeping pads, but if you want to save some weight or if you're on the smaller side, then they have a regular version, which is 21.5 inches wide. It has an R value of 3.5, but I'm a little bit uncertain on whether that's accurate. We'll get in that in a second here. But it has a decent weight at 26 ounces, which isn't the lightest sleeping pad out there, but it's kind of in that middle ground. It's 3 inches thick, which is gonna be thick enough for most people out there in order to be comfortable on this pad. And it has a baffling system that is kind of similar to the Nemo tensor. So you have vertical baffles that are also split up into little pressure relief points. So it's not like the X-Lite or Thermarest pads where you just have straight vertical baffles. And when I sleep on those, my arms fall asleep sometimes. Last night when I slept on this pad, I was very comfortable. I only tossed and turned a few times and none of my arms fell asleep, which is a very good sign. Before we get into price, which is a pretty big deal with this pad, let's talk about that R value of 3.5. So they use a synthetic insulation inside the pad along with a reflective foil throughout the middle of it. That's what's giving you the warmth with the pad. And 3.5 R value, I am usually comfortable in summer conditions with a 3.5, but when we're sleeping on frozen, cold, wet ground like we did last night, I wouldn't expect a 3.5 R value to keep me warm. And I went into last night thinking that I was gonna be cold with cold coming in from the ground, and it was surprisingly toasty. And I'm not sure why that is. It's maybe due to the insulation technology that's being used inside of it, or it could be this reflective top layer here. So they've added a reflective kind of coating to the top of the sleeping pad, and especially if you're using a quilt, I think that might make a pretty big difference in keeping you warm and creating this slightly warmer microclimate. I definitely have to test it out a little bit more to see what's going on there and maybe have some more conversations with Brigham and Tayson. I do wish that the valve was on the top of the pad. So it's a two-way valve. You have an inflation flap right here, and then you can pull the entire thing back and you dump air very quickly. But what I like about having a valve on the top of the pad is that you can do micro adjustments very easily if you're laying on the pad and you want to soften it up a bit, or if you are out in really cold temperatures and you inflate the pad and then it kind of loses some air over the course of your hanging out around camp, then you can add a little bit of air right before bed in order to firm it up and maximize R value. I'm really happy where this pad is priced as well. It's priced at just over $100, and that's going to be approachable for a lot of people out there and provide you a pad that's going to be very performative out in the field. For sleep insulation, I'm using the Stormloft 30-degree down quilt. It uses 10 denier shell fabric and then 800 power fill down. With that, you achieve a weight of 567 grams with the regular length version that I have here, and like I said, 30-degree rating. There's not a lot that differentiates different quilts, but the big thing is whether companies are being honest with their rating, because it's really easy to say our quilt that is rated to 30 degrees is 400 grams, but then maybe it only performs well at 40 degrees. So when I'm testing quilts, that's a big thing that I'm looking at. And last night, temperatures got just below freezing, and I was very comfortable in the Stormloft 30-degree. So I was recording just over there talking about the sleeping pad and quilt, and then Tayson's right here, a few dozen yards away, just listen to me talk about his products, and Brigham's just hanging out in his tent over there right now, getting things set up. Tayson, how was that?
I would say you're very accurate, and it was good, man. It was good.
Good morning. It's been raining off and on all morning, which has given me a good test for the tent on how it does in the rain. So far, no leaks, and it's not even really sagging at all, which is kind of surprising for a silk nylon tent. So that's kind of a good design feature. They must have gotten some of the geometry really dialed in. I'm just going to be kind of getting things going from inside the tent, eating my breakfast, packing things up, and then we'll get outside. I'll be able to test out the Tusher rain jacket in some real rain, which is cool. And then as we're hiking out, I'll share with you guys the gear that I'm really excited to keep using and testing, the gear that I probably won't be using and testing because it's just not a good fit for me, but how I might be recommending some of the gear for different people for different circumstances. All packed up and back on the trail. The sun is out, so no need for the Tusher rain jacket anymore, but it is a really cool jacket. It uses some unique technology that you don't really see in other jackets that creates a durable, breathable, and then also lightweight jacket, but it comes at a cost. It's $230 for the jacket, weighing around 200 grams. But I'm still really excited to keep testing it out, especially with regards to breathability and durability, because there's not a lot of rain jackets out there that come in at that 200 gram range that are both durable and breathable. But what about the other outdoor Vitals gear? Am I going to keep using the tent and the pack? Starting off with the windbreaker, I am probably going to keep using the windbreaker. It's a very interesting piece, especially for, I think, day hikes and shoulder season, where you sometimes need just that extra layer to block the wind and keep you warm when it's a little bit colder out. With the Oblivion sleeping pad, I probably won't be using it much anymore other than for testing purposes. I have sleeping pads that are lighter, sleeping pads that are more comfortable, but I do think it's a great option for people who don't want to be spending $200 on a sleeping pad and want something that's still gonna be warm, comfortable, and relatively lightweight. So I will be continuing to test out and putting more nights on it so that I can give you a better idea on whether I recommend it. For the quilt, it's gonna stay in my quilt quiver. I have a lot of different quilts, but I don't have a 30 degrees, so this one's gonna be nice to have. I feel like most quilts are the same, so as long as it's not overpriced, which the Outdoor Vitals one isn't, then it's a good buy. So I can recommend the quilt, and I will be using it on trips where I need something to keep me warm down to about freezing. The 40th tent is an interesting one. It weighs under a kilogram, so it's fairly lightweight, but what I think sets it apart from a lot of other tents out there is that it has really robust systems for dealing with weather. So there's a lot of different guy out points, ways to lock the tent down, so if you encounter a lot of wind, a lot of rain, you're gonna be really protected inside the 40th tent. But on the other hand, a lot of the time when I'm going out, I'm not in extreme conditions and I don't need a tent that's that robust. I can get away with something lighter. So for me, I probably won't be using it that much. Maybe if I head over to Europe and I'm in Scandinavia or England where they deal with a lot of crazy weather and wind, then I think that tent would be a great option. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna be pulling my go-to tents like the Z-Pax Plex Solo and the Durston X Mid 2. The pack is an interesting one. You might look at it and think it looks like pretty much every other pack out there, but I think it stands apart in the attention to detail. The fact that I can reach the water bottle pockets is pretty unique for me and kind of a game changer, especially with a pack that weighs as light as it does at just over 700 grams, and then that can carry 30, 35, maybe even 40 pounds. I'll definitely be testing this pack out and using it more. I think the way it fits into my systems is that when I want a lighter weight pack that can still carry a lot of weight, I'll probably be going with the CS40. Normally I'd be going with the REI Flash 55, but it weighs quite a bit more, almost 500 grams more than the CS40, which is quite a bit of weight to be adding onto your pack. I'll have links in the video description if you want to check out any of the gear that we talked about today. And if you want to see a trip where I kind of go pretty crazy in the desert, then go check out this video right up here. It's probably one of the craziest trips that I've ever been on, where there's times where I actually thought I would press the SOS button.